You just sold the wrong stock. And you felt smart doing it. 2 stocks, one up 20%, one down 20%. Which do you sell? Most people sell the winner, then hold the loser. Every single time. This is lucrum, where finance finally makes sense. By the end, you'll know why. Here's the data. Economists tracked 10,000 real investor accounts. 6 years. 94% of investors sold the winning position first. Not the loser. The winner. Why would anyone do that? Here's where it gets uncomfortable. Your brain runs a mental accounting system. Every stock gets its own emotional ledger. In 1985, 2 economists named it Disposition effect. The bias that costs you returns. Picture one of those accounts. 1991. 2 stocks, one winning, one losing. Tech stock, up 18%. Retail stock, down 14%. What did they do? They sold the tech stock. Felt smart. 12 months later, it kept climbing. This wasn't one bad call. Across 10,000 accounts, the pattern was identical. But here's what nobody tells you. These investors knew the rules. They just couldn't follow them. Quick question. Think of the last time you held a losing stock. What stopped you from selling? 85%. That's how many investors in Taiwan showed this exact behavior. Not a few bad investors. 85% of 4 million people. Systematically. Every year. If you're watching this, you've probably already made this mistake. That's okay. So did I. Here's how the trap works in real time. Step by step. Inside a real brokerage account. Pause here. Think about your last trade. Which box did you land in? Write it down. Seriously. But here's what nobody tells you. The reason your brain does this kept your ancestors alive. Kahneman and Tversky proved it in 1979. Losing feels twice as bad as winning feels good. Your brain doesn't see dollars. It sees pain or relief. And pain always wins the calculation. In 2007, neuroscientists put investors in brain scanners. What they found was striking. Losing money triggers the same brain region as physical danger. Adrenaline, cortisol, heart rate up. Your body reads a portfolio drop as a physical threat. The data from the Journal of Finance shows this isn't weakness, it's biology, unchanged for millennia. Here's the December anomaly. Same investors, same year. But December, everything changes. In December, tax deadlines create a concrete reward. That reward outweighs the emotional pain of selling. They knew the rule the whole time. The problem was never knowledge. And that changes everything. So if knowledge isn't the fix, what is? Professional traders have already solved this. Here's how. Professional traders, 89% use stop-loss orders. Retail investors, 10 to 15%. Save this video. That number is the answer. The gap isn't willpower. It's a pre-set system. A stop-loss order is a pre-commitment, set before the trade, executors before the feeling arrives. But here's what nobody tells you about professionals. It's not discipline, it's architecture. Before we continue, the most counterintuitive part of this research is still ahead. Stay with me. Individual investors underperform the market by 4% annually, every year, compounded. 4% sounds small. On a $50,000 portfolio, that's $2,000 per year, gone. Most advisors won't tell you this, but 4% loss to psychology isn't a market problem. It's a wiring problem. Status quo bias makes it worse. Investors who never rebalance, they hold the same allocation for years. Samuelson and Zeckhauser ran a controlled experiment, 1988. The results were not subtle. The more choices available, the stronger the bias. More options equals more paralysis. More paralysis equals more losses. Active mutual fund managers with high disposition bias, 4 to 6% worse than their peers, annually. And here's the part Wall Street rarely explains. The most counterintuitive part of this research is still ahead. Stay with me. 5-year fund survival, low disposition bias, 85% survive. High disposition bias, 77%. But here's what nobody tells you about stop losses. Most people set them. Almost nobody holds them. Wait, before I go on, what would you have done? Stop loss triggers, down 12%. Do you hold? The solution isn't stronger willpower. It's a decision made in advance, when there is no feeling involved yet. In my reading, the December data is the most underreported finding in all of behavioral finance. December proves investors aren't irrational. They're in pain. Remove the pain. Rationality returns automatically. Professionals aren't more disciplined than you. They built a system that decides before the feeling arrives. The feeling still comes. Every time. The system just makes it irrelevant. That's the entire difference. Here's what that system looks like in practice. 3 steps, all set before the trade opens. Step 2, the fixed stop loss. 10% below entry. Automatic. No override allowed during market hours. Step 3, the trailing stop. Follows the price up. Locks in gains. Exits if momentum breaks. Pause here. Open your brokerage app right now. How many positions have no stop loss set? That number is your exposure. There's one more tool, the overnight liquidation test. One question that resets your entire reference point. This question cuts through the anchor. The original price doesn't exist anymore. Only the decision today matters. Most people believe this is about intelligence. The data says something very different. It's about timing. But here's what nobody tells you. The most active traders lose the most, not the least. And there's one more layer, the ostrich effect. Investors with big losses literally stop checking their portfolios. Portfolios with large unrealized losses. Investors check them 28% less often. Avoidance compounds the damage. The damage runs deeper. Avoiding losses blocks fresh capital. New opportunities unfunded. Bad positions stay. Portfolio rots. Here's your one move. Tonight, open your portfolio. Ask this question for every position you're holding. Would I buy this again today at this price? If the answer is no, you're holding pain, not a position. You started this video selling the winner. Now you know why and what to do instead. One question, one stop loss, one trailing stop. That's it. The system professionals use, now yours. Send this to one person who's told you, it'll come back. They need this more than you did. Save this video. The 3-step system at the end is worth coming back to before every trade you make. Subscribe and hit the bell. YouTube notifies you when we drop every week. Otherwise, the algorithm decides for you. Hit the hype button below. 3 seconds. Right now, in this channel's early days, it matters more than you know. If this changed how you think about money, our video on investor psychology goes deeper. Link on screen. And if you're just starting out, the stock market is just a giant psychological game is the foundation. Worth watching in order. One question. Which bias from this video did you recognize in yourself? Drop it in the comments below. Next week, we're breaking down why most investors buy at exactly the wrong time. See you then.